Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to another episode of Forgotten But Funky, the show where we talk about albums that are great, but never turned out to be cult classics, never turned out to be huge classics, that simply were, as the title suggests, forgotten, but are funky nonetheless. Today's record is called And Future Dreams by the one and only Wilbur Bascomb, who is a bassman, but later on more about him. The record was released in 1977 on H&L Records. H&L is short for Hugo and Luigi, two Italian cousins who also acted as executive producers. And generally they had a long career behind the scenes in music. They produced Sam Cooke, for example. They co-wrote I Can't Help Falling in Love with, and so on. So you see, they have quite a long and rich history in the music industry, but this might be their masterstroke, releasing this album. It's released on H&L Records, and it's by Wilbur Bascomb with a few musicians. At first, a few words about Wilbur himself. He was born in 1934, and he's the son of Dud Bascomb, who was a trumpet player who even played for Duke Ellington and later on for James Brown. So Wilbur came up in a musical family, at least from his father's side. I don't know what his mother did, but presumably she played quite a good banjo. I don't know. Wilbur himself, the one we have in front of us, his father is called Wilbur himself, but the nickname was Dud. Wilbur picked up the bass. I don't know so much about his upbringing. His Wikipedia entry is quite short. Otherwise, you also don't find as much about him. But he became quite a sought-after session player, and you find lots of recordings by huge names that you know. For example, Bo Diddley, Andy Bay, Big Mama Thornton, Jeff Beck. He played for all of them. He played in the 1979 recording of the musical Hair. He played the bass. All of this. So quite a long career with lots of cool names attached to it. And in 1977 he released his first and to this day only solo record called And Future Dreams. So what is this record? As we see by the cover, it has a bit of a space science fiction theme. Wilbur himself is here with a cool astronaut's helmet and hopefully also an astronaut's suit, otherwise he'll freeze because space is said to be rather cold. And I'll turn it over. On the back, again the space theme. We see the album has 6 songs, and we see a few cool session players, which I'll name right now. So we got Wilbur Bascomb on bass, ARP string ensemble, synthesizer and background vocals. Then Will Boulware, I hope he's pronounced, also on piano and background vocals, Errol Cornyn, Ken Mazur on guitar, Ron Giordano on guitar, and Maxwell Romer as the lead vocalist. A few words about Maxwell Romer. I tried to find something, but at least on Discogs there are only 4 singles that he released. He never released an album or so. It's a pity because he's a cool singer, at least on this album. Then we have a few, apart from the players, a few visitors from other planets. Ken Bichel, Hiram Bullock, who's a bit of a more well-known guitar player, playing a solo on the song King of the Funky People. Nick Kirksey, playing the piano and the percussion. And a female singer called Unity, doing background vocals on 2 songs. Yes. So Wilbur himself acts more as a bass player and piano, and one of the 2 songwriters, the singer Maxwell, wrote the songs with Wilbur. And yes, one short word. We see on this picture Wilbur without an astronaut's helmet, but holding a bass. And looking at this, you might think he's a left-hand player because the bass is a left-hand player bass. And the strings are also from deep to high. But all the footage of Wilbur we find on the internet is more or less is of him being a right-hand player, so I think this photo was simply mirrored to look better on this layout, which is okay. So, what have we on this album? More or less, I would call it space funk, but he has some forays into different other genres. So, as we have 6 songs on this record, I will just talk about each one of them, because they're all important in their own right, and funky in their own right, and rather cool in their own right. Just for fun, before I do this, look at this. This album has 6 songs, and the commercial sticker from the recording company tells me on side 1 to listen to Chariots of the God, and then the whole side 2 through. So if you try this out in your local record store, be sure to listen to 4 of the 6 songs in a whole. Anyway, the first song is called King of the Funky People. It's actually quite a great start. I would say Wilbur definitely manifests himself, maybe not as the king, but as the Duke, the Archduke of the Funky People, at least, because it is quite a funky jam. It has a very good-hearted, wholesome melody to it. Funny, groovy synths, a spoken word verse, a great interlude that sounds like you're flying through space, whatever that means, but you have to check it out for yourself. Then it has a great guitar solo by Hiram Bullock, and the whole UFO theme of this album gets established, like there are UFOs get mentioned and so on. It ends with a fade out, which some people, including myself, lots of the time think is a bit lame to end an album with a fade out, but I think here it's okay, and I assume also he did it with DJs in mind, and it's easier to mix from one from one song to another on LPs if it's a fade out than a sudden ending. So, great start to a cool album. Then, number 2, Chariots of the Gods, is by far my highlight, as I think it's an absolutely amazing song. I'm sorry to boast, but it's a great song. It's got a funny melody, starting out as a synth melody, and awesome background vocals by this woman called Unity. The start of this song illuminates a light in your heart, to get a bit cheesy. Then the drums come in, they're minimalist but very funky. You have a repetitive bass line that makes it even more danceable, and it's super funky. The chorus is epic in its own right. It has a spiritual element to it. It has a super positive atmosphere, and I think it could be played in church, and even some lapsed Catholics would return to God if only he was this space funky, which he might be. I don't know. I don't no judgments about God in this video. Halfway through it, the music calms a bit down. The only thing you hear is the repetitive drum and a weird bass solo that suddenly turns into a weird bass motif that gets repeated. Like it sounds a bit like he's stumbling, but you hear that it's willingly done so, and then you see, whoa, this is quite abstract and cool bass playing. Then, after one by one, layers of organs and synths come in, and it's a sensitive build-up, which has a bit of a holy atmosphere to it. It becomes like this synth space funk hymn. It's the singer, what was his name again? Sorry, Maxwell Romer, suddenly starts with quite a preachy vocal performance. It has this sound. It's really a funny and great and huge and epic song, which doesn't take itself too seriously. It's not pretentious. It's simply great, and especially in maybe these weird times we're living through right now. It's January of 2021 with a pandemic raging all over the world. This is quite a boast a boost of happy and positive atmosphere. And just so sometimes when the world is normal, I do DJ and I love to put this one on, and really every time people come to me and ask what is this song, and I always tell them, and then they go home smarter and a bit more space funky than they came. The last song on side A is called Music is the Answer. It's sung by Errol Cornyn, who is the drummer. This one is the disco song of the album. It's got a straightforward rhythm to it. It's more of a jam. It doesn't have this verse, chorus structure as other songs. It has funny and easy lyrics. It's wholesome. It again has a fade out to it. In between it has great start-stop dynamics, which might be expected when drummers write songs. It's a cool song. It's not one of my highlights, but still it's a great one. Side 2 starts with Come Spend a Day With Me, which the first half of the song is simply a synth atmosphere reminding me of it's quite calm, peaceful. You hear some synths that remind you of birds. It has an atmosphere of a warm place where you want to hang out and relax and find your inner self, your middle again. Then it turns into a trippy ballad, has again a sci-fi theme, a bit kitschy lyrics which are cool, like I'll show you where the rainbow touches the sky. And Come Play With Me, it has a bit of an innuendo which you might expect in a soul ballad. And weird minimalist drums which make it a bit less groovy than it could be, but it's still a great album, a great song. Leading up to Out of Body Experience, which is my actual highlight from side 2. It's got a cool wholesome melody again. Again it has this theme of, hey, I will do something with you, which we have on the song before. He's singing, go out of body with me. Feel how it feels to be free. So it's very spiritual, a bit esoteric sci-fi, I would call it. Again, cool breaks, cool synths. The drum is really bouncy. I can't emulate it right now as well as other parts I already emulated. But it's a funny song. It's also quite dancey, also very positive. Gives you a good boost of atmosphere, of positive thinking. Yes. Then already, unfortunately, we're on the last song. It's called Devil's Triangle. It's got a trippy and slow intro. We have wave sounds, like actual water waves from the ocean, I mean. Then it seems to be a bit like a prog rock song, but it isn't. It really isn't. Because suddenly it turns into a reggae song. And the lyrics are about Bermuda's Triangle, aka the Devil's Triangle. And we have a bit of ESO theories. There's mentioning of how the pyramids were built. And we have cool background falsetto singing money, greed and power. And a bass solo and another guitar solo and again a fade out. So it maybe to name it to say one criticism, it really doesn't sound like authentic reggae, but this weird trippy science fiction for reggae done by people who are not usually reggae musicians. But it's a great song nonetheless. It's really funny and funky and reggae-y and yeah, spiritual, which is not my thing usually, but here he totally rocks it. So my whole judgment about this album is Wilbur Bascomb and Future Dreams is a great album with 5 great songs and one really amazing song. Really, I can't name it different. I can't tell you otherwise. This is an amazing song. And another thing, you can hear that Wilbur Bascomb is a huge bass virtuoso, but he never puts it in the middle of his compositions. The compositions are always more important to him than showing off his skills, and that makes this album an album full of great space funky, space reggae, space soul, space disco compositions, songs. So, if you like, for example, Parliament and Funkadelic, of course, who were quite big on that space funk thing in the 70s, you will love this. Generally, George Clinton, Bootsy Collins projects, you will love this. If you like Prince, I'm a huge Prince fan, and for example, his album 1999 has, for some reason, this atmosphere of 1999 reminds me a bit of this atmosphere here. And yes, if you like Prince, even though this is before him, you might love him because he also uses those minimalist beats and all. Even if you like Thundercat, the great versatile bassman who now does solo records since 2011, also with a bit of a science fiction theme, but of course more modern. But if you like his work, this one is a great predecessor for this. This album here is not on Spotify. It's on Discogs quite often. You can buy it for around $5 or euros, I think. It's way worth it. Don't waste your money on some first pressings of great Funkadelic albums just to own a weird first pressing of Maggot Brain. Buy this one and have a great new album that you don't know about. Generally, Wilbur Bascomb is still among us, which is cool as well, even though he's born in 1936. So if he should, by any chance, hear this weird review, Wilbur, I salute you and thanks a lot for this music. So, that was my review of Wilbur Bascomb and Future Days. Keep rocking, and bye-bye. Thanks.